welcome to another episode of Chris McBride Reacts. I appreciate y'all tuning in. Before we get started, go ahead and smash that like button, smash that notification bell so you can be notified anytime I drop another banger on the channel. Sorry that the camera is autofocusing, man. This one I always want to be on one for some reason. Nonetheless, please help a brother out by clicking that subscribe button. I got a goal of reaching over 1,000 subscribers immediately. So if y'all could help a brother out by clicking that link or clicking that subscribe button so you can help me get to over 1,000 immediately, I appreciate it. Give you 1 second to do so. All right, I appreciate the support. So without further ado, I got a dope banger today on the topic of semen retention. This is definitely an interesting topic, at least for me. So without further ado, let's get into it and let's see what he's talking about.
Elliot, now that I have been practicing NoFap, I noticed that when I get down with my lady, I've become a premature ejaculator, which was never a problem before. In fact, I used to last too long to where it was annoying. Now it's like I can't control it and I bust right away. How can I manage this? So before I get into my opinion on this, I just have to state that I'm not an expert, but I'm on this journey with you. And I have been doing semen retention for the past 2 months, and I do it in my sexual relationship with my wife because I don't masturbate. But I was having sex and ejaculating multiple times a week. And so I come across this thing, I don't know what you call it, called Carezza. This practice is a practice of Carezza. So which is essentially, if I boil it down to it, it's having sex, but not blowing your load. Just keep having sex, but not ejaculating, which is interesting because as young men,
Definitely a challenge, though. So when they're talking about NoFap, they're basically talking about semen retention, and they're basically talking about the importance of maintaining your load, which is basically not releasing, not ejaculating, not busting a nut, basically, for lack of a better term. So just keeping your semen on the actual inside of it, keeping your semen on the inside, as opposed to having your semen actually come out on the outside. Now the challenge with this particular thing is that it becomes difficult because when you're having sex but you're not trying to bust, you can get blue balls, because what your lowest chakra is your sexual chakra. So all that energy stays in the lower base. That's what causes blue balls, because you got a lot of arousal that's going down there. So, but it can't stay there. So you have to learn how to basically pull that energy up from your lower sexual drive all the way up to your crown chakra, which is creativity. So the thing that, because I used to do this with my girl too, is I would have sex with her, but I wouldn't bust a nut. I was practicing semen retention, but I would again get blue balls all the time. So I would have to immediately, as soon as I pulled out from her, I would have to put my mind on something creative immediately. I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait a minute. I had to literally immediately do it. Otherwise, that blue balls will kick in, and that's a very painful experience. Let's keep going.
first of all, as men, we're goal-oriented. So there's got to be an end for us to be satisfied. That's just our nature, right? We want to get to the bottom line. We want to get to the solution. We want to get to the conclusion. We want to get to the ejaculation, right? Because then it's done. And so when we first start, I would say that 95% of us had our first sexual experience with Miss Palmer and her 10 daughters or 5 daughters, right? Most of us, it came through masturbation. And so we set the stage for...
I just got that, Miss Palmer. And the 10 daughters or the 5 daughters. That's I haven't heard that before. That's kind of funny to me. That's good.
Ourselves to get to the goal as quickly as possible. I don't know about you, but I remember, right? I think the first time I fapped, I must have been about like 12 or 13 years old. And it was just a mad dash to that busting nut. It was as quickly as I can, whoa, and as fast as it could come, the better, because it was like I just wanted to get to that gush, right? And so what ends up happening is we then treat sex the same way because it's in our nature, and then it becomes a practice, so it becomes ingrained in us to hurry up, get to it. And so there are a few things that I've learned over the course of the past few months while I'm practicing Carezza, which means give your wife all the orgasms she wants. According to this one book called Energy Carezza. 2 books I recommend: The Gentleman's Guide to Carezza Sex, and Energy Carezza. I don't remember the author's names, but you can look both those books up. And so I gather from reading and then also from experience, and I'll tell you a few things that I've learned as a result in order to better control myself, because it was never a concern to me. I never even thought of it until coming across these ideas.
And also something he said at the very beginning, where he said, I don't know if he was talking about his experience or he was talking about he was reading like a comment from somebody that he's going to respond to. And he basically said they've been practicing no fab, which is basically no release. And then when they started having sex with their wife again, they're constantly pre-ejaculating because they haven't been ejaculating at all. So as soon as that little sensation comes in, it goes, and they're having a hard time, I guess, lasting longer with their girl or with their wife because they've been practicing semen retention. So now they just bust quick. And that's true. I definitely experienced that too. I think the longest I had went while me and my girl was dating was maybe 2 to 3 months or something like that. And yeah, when we started having sex again, it would just come quick. But when we first met, and I was like in the height of just constantly having sex and everything like that, I would last for long periods of time. So there is some truth to that. So I guess we're about to break down the skill of, you know what I'm saying, even if you are not trying to retain, or even if you are trying to retain, you're still able to please. And even if you do release, I guess there's ways that you can control your release. So I'm interested in hearing more.
Of how semen retention. Look, I'm getting older, and I need to bust less nuts, which reminds me, there's another book I want to bring.
And I agree wholeheartedly with that. The older you get, the less that you work. It has more of a physiological effect on you. You get way more tired and it does way more damage. You gotta also remember the whole purpose of releasing for the man is to generate life, is to recreate ourselves. So that nut is pulling from every organ in our body because it wants to recreate us. That's also why busting a nut is the most energy draining process that the body has. The second one is digestion. But the reason why the nut is the first one is because it's taking your whole life force to try to create another life. So when we're just busting up for pleasure, it causes damage on us. That's also why in the Bible it says not to spill your seed, because when you get older and your flesh is all worn and torn, then you'll be like, damn, I done wasted my life. So that's basically what he's saying too. The older you get, the more damage it has on a man. Let's keep going.
Before I get into some of the techniques that I've learned and that might be helpful to you, here's another book. So I think it's important, and in this book he makes it clear that it's not that we never blow our load ever again, but there is a optimal time of retention that a man based on his age should go. So, I'm doing my best to last as long as I can, but there should be an end point, and I gotta find it in this book. Oh man. He tells you, okay, here. So according to traditional Chinese medicine, this is how often you should blow your load, which is most healthy. If you do it any more than this, then you're making yourself weak. You're losing your vitality. And I started to feel like I'm losing my vitality as I was getting older. I'm wondering what's like going on with me. And I was starting to have ED. I was like, wow, I don't want to have sex. And it turns out, no, I didn't have ED. I was just blowing my load too much. You need to stop blowing your load. Not stop having sex, stop blowing your load. Guess what happened when I stopped blowing my load? ED went away. I just need to wait long enough to build back up my vitality. And then as long as I don't blow my load, especially for this period of time, there's no ED. There's no ED. Guys who have ED, I'm telling you, part of the reason why you have ED is because you're blowing your load too much, too often, too soon. Stop blowing your load and ED goes away.
That's facts. You can't just be constantly busting nuts. That's another thing. That's definitely something I'm going to teach my son and instill in my son, is that we can't just be out here just blowing our load and busting nuts and just releasing like we want to, just because for whatever reason we might feel the need to, or the pleasure to, or just whatever it is. So I agree wholeheartedly with what bro is saying, that you can't just be blowing your load. You gotta actually watch your load and make sure that, again, you're not just blowing your load just to be blowing it. You're not just releasing just to be releasing, and you're not releasing often. I just released this morning and stuff like that. But nonetheless, I was just talking to my girl about, all right, I'm saying, wanting to get into the semen retention. She wanted me to blow my load this morning because she thought that, you know what I'm saying, she was neglecting me because she's pregnant. So I'm like, baby, you really want to neglect me. I was taking this as a time to actually, you know what I'm saying, do semen retention. So now that we on the same page, I'm about to continue to stack my load or to build my load and all that stuff like that again, because I firmly believe, I've experimented with it. I firmly believe if a guy can hold his stuff for at least a week, you start to notice a difference in your energy. You start to notice a difference in your testosterone. You hold it for a month, you really start to notice some difference. You hold it for 2 months, your energy be on a whole nother level. So I can only imagine people no fabbing for a year, 2 years, 5 years, 3 years, whatever it is. So let's keep going.
Here it is. The ancient texts give the following advice. For a man of 20 years, once every 4 days. So once every 4 days, you should blow your load. At 30, once every 8 days. That's a challenge. At 40, I'm 40, once every 16 days. So really the goal for me is to get past 2 weeks, right? If I get past 2 weeks, and so right now I'm on day 9, right? And the longest I've gone is like 2 weeks, right? And I'd like to go longer too, just for a challenge.
So at 30, you're supposed to be at 8 days. Okay. Well, I'm 33, so maybe that's like 9 or 10 days or something like that. Every 9 or 10 days, busting it. That's not too bad. Low key, that's borderline what I've, you know what I'm saying? Well, sometimes I have, you know what I'm saying, a lot where I'm on the head all the time, or, you know what I'm saying, sex all the time. But for the most part, yeah, I don't really be doing loads that often. So that's interesting.
Challenge myself. Just to challenge myself. At 30, once every 8 days. At 40, once every 16 days. At 50, once every 20 days. And at 60, once a month. Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? So they give us a guideline by which, this is according to traditional Chinese medicine. He says, there are clear guidelines in traditional Chinese medicine about ejaculation of sperm. In general, not more than twice a month is advised because of loss of qi. Other considerations include a man's health and age. The ancient texts give the following advice. For a man of 20, once every 4 days. A man of 30, once every 8 days. A man of 30, once every 8 days. 40, 16 days. You heard me say it anyway. Just reiterating. So I think that gives some of us a starting point. Now, that is if you're having sex. I don't think he addresses masturbation in this book, but if you've ever read Montauk Chia's book, The Multi-Orgasmic Man, he believes in masturbation, but not to ejaculation. He believes that by masturbating, you're basically, having sex with yourself, right? But you don't do it to the point of ejaculation. You do it simply to circulate that sexual energy. That's what he says. You build.
That's kind of wild to me. I don't understand the point of masturbating. Now, granted, you know what I'm saying? I guess what he's saying is that sexual energy can be stimulating and can spark some energy within you. So I guess using that arousal and transmuting that to something productive, maybe.
It up and you circulate it through stroking, but it's not even really masturbating because you're not coming to a conclusion. And so given that, and then these guidelines, you could see that there's something, something for us to strive for. I'm not sure that these guys, and some of you maybe you, who are allowing your dick to go dormant for 60, 80, 90 days, I'm not sure that that's the best way. Because what I've heard, I don't know, happens is if you go too long without blowing your load, first of all, it could be bad. I don't know to what extent, but I've heard that it's not so healthy for you. And then also, your body will start to forget that you could get a boner. Your body will start to forget what it's like to be sexually aroused, and then it's harder for arousal to come on, and then you become like asexual, like you just don't want sex anymore, which may be okay if you're a monk, right? Maybe that's what you want as a monk, but as a man, married man having sex, you want to stimulate, you just don't want to ejaculate. So, once again,
stimulating without ejaculation. That's an interesting one. That may be a topic for another video. Stimulation versus ejaculation.
I haven't gone 60, 90, 100 days like some of you guys. I'm aiming for what the traditional Chinese medicine book says, which is 16 days, right? And I'm pretty sure I really made it a concerted effort because I would like consciously blow my load sometimes. And now I'm just going to stop consciously blowing my load. I only have mistakes. I only have very few mistakes. But there are times where I'm like, I just have to do it. Right? And I don't know what that is. That's the demon within me. But 16 days.
Well, he's being real though, and I think that as men we can be honest, and there's like that little, like he said, little demon that kicks in and just like, I just want to blow it. So you know what I'm saying, we all have that, but like he's saying, it's all about just trying to control that to the best of our ability.
Me, and so on and so forth for you guys. You know, a week, 2 weeks, whatever. But that's not the problem for you, right? Because you're not jerking off, which is good. You're not fapping. You're getting with your girl, and as soon as you get inside her, you're blowing your load, which is the problem. I'm gonna stop you guys' videos when you come in. And so here are a few things that I've learned. I read some of these and I practiced some of these techniques so that you can last longer. Number one, and I'm gonna be all over the place here with these because I'm just gonna call them out as I think of them. Number one, you gotta recognize what your deadly positions are. There are certain deadly positions for me, and it's just usually the same for most men. And the deadliest positions are when you're flesh to flesh with your whole partner, right? When your whole body's lined up. When your whole body's lined up and touching, right? So if my wife is completely on top of me or I'm completely on top of her, and our flesh is our chest is touching, our belly's touching, our legs are touching, everything's touching, that's a deadly position because you're hyper aroused because too much of your skin is touching, right? If you're touching and you're really touching, then there's hyperarousal. You could use your imagination, but there are certain positions where you're pulled off. You're not fully, the skin's not fully touching. It's just what's between the legs. This is what's happening at the hips, right? So you could just think that there are certain positions where you can just get the hips involved, but you're not on top. And not to say that the whole sex act needs to be that way, but I'll talk to you about recognizing, when to pull back and when not to. But you got to know your deadly positions. There are certain deadly positions, and those are the positions that you want to be careful with. The other thing too is there's deadly movement.
Deadly positions, deadly movies, deadly trade. You know what I'm saying? Shit, you slap something in the back for long enough, you be like, oh, steps. That's definitely a deadly position of mine. So I definitely feel it. Like slap something in the back, and he just like, yo, it's coming.
When you're jacking your hips, when you're moving your body, the orgasm reflex, according to Wilhelm Reich, is a wave-like movement within the body. And then you get to a particular point where the root, which is your prostate, because of this movement, right? Because of this humping movement, you get to a particular point where you're like snaking, right? And what do they say? There's like a snake hidden down at the bottom of the pelvis, right? This is according to some philosophies. But really what that is your prostate. And that prostate starts pumping. And so you got to get this, you have to, sometimes instead of you humping, you take her body and you move it back and forth, right? So you stay kind of still and you move her body, right? And she'll like that too. You move her body. But the minute you start moving, you're starting to wake that snake. You don't want to wake that snake up. You want to keep still, keep breathing. Another one, I'm just throwing these all out here for you guys. Just pick and choose. I find that when I'm on my feet, I have better control when I'm on my feet, right? And there are certain times of the day I have better control. I have better control at night than I do in the morning, right? Just be paying attention to myself, and I'm giving you these tips so you can figure yourself out too. When I'm on my feet, I have total control when I'm on my feet. I have endless.
Bringing up some interesting points. Being on your feet, definitely interesting. And I would agree with that if I'm just reflecting through my experience. And also the staying still and not moving your hip. That's a bar that I'm definitely going to try to apply with that. And more so move her as opposed to moving my own hips and all that stuff like that. Because I can understand what he's talking about with arousing that snake. And then that's what will lead to an early ejaculation. So let's keep going.
Control when I'm on my feet. But if I, get off my feet, well then, it could be different. Morning time is a deadly time too. So those are the deadly situations that you can avoid. Here's another thing that I discovered that we have to learn how to do. when we get sexually aroused, we get tense. I don't know if you noticed this, but I'll even, especially in the morning, because I'm not as in control of myself, I'll notice that my breathing changes and I'll tense up certain parts of my body. And I'll even tense those parts of my body in anticipation of ejaculation. And so we have to pull back that anticipatory tension in our body. Because when we have that tension in our body, it's like we're trying to push it out. You ever feel like you're like, almost like trying to push your ejaculate out, right? It's like it feels so good that you're just like, you squeezing your butt and you're like you're almost pushing it out. What you got to do is pull back that tension back into your body, and then breathe and soften all the muscles in your body. I used to do this meditation where I would scan my whole body from top to bottom, and I would feel like what it feels like. Like I would just imagine like a scanner, like a supermarket scanner, scanning from the top of my body to top to the bottom. If you breathe, right, just breathe. And I'm giving you a whole lot of stuff here. One of the things you got to do is you got to breathe longer. 5 seconds in, pause 5 seconds, breathe, exhale 5 seconds.
It's called diaphragmatic breathing. He's definitely speaking that diaphragmatic breathing. Then with the exercise that he was talking about, as far as imagining himself and in the scanner and everything, you also just want to imagine as you scan yourself, you're going down from the top down. You want to imagine every muscle just relaxing. So starting with your forehead muscles relaxing, you get that muscle in the eye, cheek, jaw muscles, neck muscles. Then you want to relax the shoulder and the back and the diaphragm, and before you know it, your full body is relaxed. So that's an amazing mental exercise in order to get your body to relax.
As you're breathing, scan and feel your body from the bottom of your feet to the top of your head, right? This all while you're having sex. That's why a man has to be in control of himself when he's having sex. A woman, when she's having sex, she lets go of control. This is huge right here. We act like women. That's just the way it is in our culture right now. We know nothing about being men. We get most of our ways from women, behaving like women, thinking like women, mommy. And women, they let go in ecstasy during sex. And in a way, because we're effeminate, we do the same thing. We want to have sex. We want to let go in sex. But it doesn't work that way for men. Men, again, we have to build our value. The burden of performance is always on the man. And that's okay, because that's what being a man's about. That's what we signed up for. And I'll take that responsibility. I'll let my woman have all the orgasms she wants and let her fully let go. Let go, baby. But the man, right, she needs to surrender to the orgasm. And a lot of women can't even do that. They can't even surrender to the orgasm. So they are too masculine, these women that can't surrender into the orgasm. But men not supposed to surrender. Men don't surrender in orgasm. Men maintain control of himself during sex. You got to be self-conscious during sex. You can't be ecstatic. It's not for us to be ecstatic during sex. It's not for us to let go during.
That's an interesting thought that I hadn't considered. As far as men should always maintain control during sex, the woman is the one that actually let go of the ecstasy and all that. He made a valuable point about how most of us are just raised by women, so we take on these feminine attributes and mindsets and mentalities and mannerisms and everything, and that be one of them. Where we just think, you better get yours before I get mine. Like that's the whole motto. Where it's just like I'm a bust before the girl and all that. The girl shit don't even matter and everything. But what they're basically saying is that the man should maintain control, and his ejaculation is the one that doesn't matter because he's not trying to release. He only has sex to please her, and then he pulls out before his erection or his ejaculation comes, and he channels his energy into something productive. Now, again, he will blow a load every now and then, but he's not blowing a load every time he has sex. The purpose of having sex for him isn't blowing load. It's to just please his woman, or it's to recreate himself, which is to procreate. Excuse me. Or just to release every now and then just for the therapeutic aspect, which is what he was talking about with the Chinese medicine, which is for my age around every 8 to 10 days, or 40-year-olds around 16 days.
Sex is for us to be focused during sex. I know this is crazy. It sounds crazy. And it almost sounds like, well, what's the point? Well, you'll see, because there's a great advantage to having lots of sex but not blowing your load. So breathing, Scanning your body. Be aware of your whole body. If you find that you start holding tension, and all of us are different. I will start to like squeeze my butt, or I'll like squeeze my feet, or my breathing will get shallow. If that starts to happen, then you have to back off a little bit and then allow those areas of tension to relax. And then you relax that, right? So you're stroking, right? Maybe she's on top of you, you're on top of her, whatever it is. You're doing the thing, but you're conscious of yourself. If you get wrapped up in her, the way she looks, the way she's moaning, the things she's doing, you're gonna lose yourself. She will take you off your focus. You gotta focus. It's work, but it's worth it. Another one, I'm just giving you, again, this is not like a comprehensive ebook where you're just gonna follow step by step. It's me just telling you stuff off the top of my head. Clench your teeth. I breathe through my nose, but I clench my teeth. I read this in a book called The Tao of Sexology many years ago, but I don't know how it works or why, but if you clench your teeth and keep your face relaxed, and breathe, it gives you more. I have more control when I clench my teeth. Why? I don't know. More control when I clench my teeth. And I'll give you this last final tip, right? This last final tip. You have to be aware of your state of arousal. We got to be aware of our state of arousal. Like I said, men can't let go in sex. We don't have the luxury of letting go in sex if you're using sex for cultivation like we're talking about right now. If you're just using sex for, or masturbation, you just want to blow your load because you're addicted to orgasm, that's a totally different thing. But when you're a man that's cultivating his masculinity, cultivating your sexuality, then sex becomes kind of a workout. But it's so worth it. I don't know about you, man, but it's so worth it to be able to please my woman that way and to be in just master of my domain, right? I'm in control. I decide when I'm going to let go. So you got to be aware of your state of arousal, and you got to give yourself maybe like, from 1 to 5. 1 being like, hey, I'm good. I can keep going. 5 being, it's about to blow. And you don't want to get to the point where it's about to blow. Because then there's other techniques that you got to do, like they call it the $1 million spot, right between your balls and your butthole. You got to take your fingers and you got to jam it right there, right where the semen is supposed to come out. Jam your fingers right there and hold it, and your prostate might even be orgasming, like pumping, but you don't let that semen out. And I've caught that a couple of times. I've had to do that. Boom, and then you go into like a crunch and flex, and you go, argh! Right? You got to forget about the girl, right? Throw her off you. Boom. That
sounds a lot.
You gotta bear down on it and hold it and like flex your abdominals, but you don't want to get to that point because that's terrible. You don't want to do that. So
Yo, definitely shout out to him, man. I'm gonna leave a description or a link in the description for the full video so y'all can go check it out. Let me know your comments, let me know your takeaways, let me know your thoughts. Have you practiced semen retention? Is this something that you actually into? Let me know if you want me to do more reaction videos on people that talk about semen retention so we can kind of, grow in this area together. I appreciate all my followers. Again, please hit the notification bell so you can be notified anytime we drop another banger. Then also hit that subscribe button so you can help me reach my goal of reaching over 1,000 subscribers immediately. So please let me do that. Beyond that, y'all keep blessing, y'all keep progressing. Until then, till the next time, we out.